allow him to be the shutdown force that he is on 5-5, and you allow him to penalty kill. Now, on the other side of the equation, is it that Nate Schmidt helps?
All right, we are back. Vlog 59, and I think for the third time since starting this vlog, I'm coming at you from the loneliest road in America. Now that's a nickname that was given years ago to the stretch of Highway 50 in the state of Nevada, and the states decided to embrace it and kind of use it as a marketing ploy. It's actually worked well. I'm heading out here to shoot 2 episodes of Silver State Sights. One of them won't be that interesting to talk about, I don't think, but the other one's actually in a castle. And I'm staying at that castle tonight. It's a little hotel in the middle of nowhere that they made in the theme of a castle. A mini Excalibur, perhaps you could say. So, I'm going to do that, see how it is. I'm going to run down a ridiculous hand, something that I've done before on one of these trips, and a few other things. So let's get to it. You're probably not going to find a more obscure vlog location than this. I am checking in from the Paradise Ranch Castle. Not a place you're going to see too much information about online, although it does have a website because it's an actual bed and breakfast location. And when I was looking for fun, out-of-the-way places to shoot for my segment, Silver State Sights on Colo 8, this kind of came to the top of the list, and they were very kind to have me. And it's a pretty cool place. Take a look at some video. They have a dungeon downstairs that does feature a poker table, and it's a place where you can pretty much always come and stay if you're willing. So I wanted to do something I've done before on one of these trips. In fact, it was actually a trip down this highway, Highway 50, the loneliest road in America, where I first mentioned, back on vlog 6, I think it was, the octo crab. And the octo crab has become a phenomenon here on the vlog. People now see me in other cities at other poker rooms, they'll mention the octo crab. And that came due to a hand where an opponent of mine, to use the word luck-boxed is a disservice to that word. There has to be something to describe it more severe than that. When you win with 8-3 of diamonds on an ace-8 or on an ace-7-3 one diamond board, when you get your entire stack in against a set of aces, which is what happened there with the octo crab. That's how the legend of the octo crab was born. But I wanted to do what I did then now. I wanted to tell you about a truly ridiculous hand that I was involved in. And maybe I shouldn't do that because, and I've actually been thinking about this, a lot of the hands I bring you on this vlog are very player dependent. So you can look at them and say, oh, that's a terrible play. Well, in general, that's true. But I only make some certain plays because of the opponents I'm up against. And that has to be factored in. When you play in a small market like Reno, and I'm sure a lot of you know this if you don't play in Vegas or LA, you play against the same guys all the time. So you have no choice but to adapt to them specifically, which is what was going on here. So we got a VIP, and he loves to have fun during the game, and I am there to facilitate that whenever possible. I'll gamble with him in a lot of occasions. So there was a hand where he was in late position, and I was in the low jack, and we had agreed that if it folded to me, I was going to raise without looking at my cards, and he was going to re-raise me without looking at his cards. Okay, that's where this hand starts. So sure enough, it does fold to me. So, true to turn, I don't look at the cards, I make it 20, and he re-raises me to 80 blind. All right, so now it folds back around to me, and now I have to look. I look down at 8-6 offsuit. It's known as the Dustin around Reno. Not exactly a hand I want to play, but look, we're already gambling here. We've already agreed to gamble. To just fold now seems a little ridiculous, right? So I'm going to go ahead and make this call and see what happens. Well, flop comes pretty good. Comes 5, 7, 10 rainbow, giving me an open-ended straight draw. And given the fact that he was obviously blind when he made this raise, I'm going to look to just take the pot down right now, hope he doesn't have anything, and I'm going to bet. I fire 85. Well, he doesn't think too long with it, and he calls. The turn, is highly above average for me. It comes a 4. So all of a sudden, I have the nuts after raising and calling with 8-6 offsuit pre-flop. So I have the nuts here. He had called my bet on the flop, so I was thinking at the time that he probably had a 10 in his hand. I decide to bet, not to slow play. I fast play it, I bet 150. He thinks about it for a second and raises me to 400. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. What has happened here? Given the fact that I only have a little under 800 in my stack at this point, I was down a couple hundred on the day. I decide not to slow play here either. I shove it all in. He snap calls. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is unbelievable. What has happened? He ends up having the 3-6 of clubs. So we both make a straight on this hand. Unfortunately for him, I have the nut straight and I double up. So in what can only be described as one of the most ridiculous hands I've ever played, I luck box myself into a double up on a hand that I shouldn't have even played in the first place, but because he wanted action and we had agreed for this gamble, it ends up happening for me.
Today, doesn't it feel like the last Super Bowl didn't really happen because it was so uneventful? 13-3. Yeah. I can remember no plays from the game.
So not long after shooting that story in Austin, Nevada, and making the trip back along the loneliest road in America, I jumped into a 3-5 game at Peppermill. The day started off real bad. I flopped a set of 4s, only to lose about $500 or so to a pro who turned the nut flush on me. But our first hand that I recorded comes when we get a middle position limp, and a VIP in the cutoff makes it 50. I look down at pocket jacks in the small blind, and given the player in question here, I think this is definitely still a raise. I make it 100. The limper folds, and the cutoff claims that he has pocket 8s and folds as well. Later on, we get a button limp, and I have pocket kings in the small blind. I make it 25, and the limper makes the call. So with 50 in, it comes queen 3-5 rainbow. I bet 30, and he raises it to 100. Now I know from years of experience against this player that he's likely to fold out most of his queens if I 3-bet the flop. So with that in mind, I decide to flat and hope that he would value bet a queen on the turn. The turn's a 10, and I check it to him, and unfortunately, he doesn't bet. So we go heads up to a 9 on the river. I value bet 100, and he folds quickly, claiming to have been open-ended on the flop. Later on, +2 limps in, and I make the incredibly advanced play of over-limping, 3-6 of hearts in the cutoff. The blind's complete, so with 20 in, it comes queen 9-5 with 2 hearts. The blinds check, and +2 bets 15. I make the call here with the flush draw, and the small blind calls as well. So with 65 in, the turn is the deuce of hearts, giving me a flush. It gets checked to me, and I have an obvious bet here. I make it 30. The small blind and under the gun +2 both call, which definitely has me concerned. With 155 in, the river is the biggest brick in the deck. It comes the 3 of diamonds. And now the small blind bets 50. +2 folds, and now it's back on me. This feels like a blocker bet. If he had a flush, would he really just check call out of position in a 3-way pot on the turn? I decided that if my hand was good enough to call, it should also be good enough to raise fold. So I min-raise it to 100. He snap calls, which I knew was not necessarily good, and he shows king 10 of hearts for a very cautiously played second nuts. Shortly after that, I turn a jack-high flush, get shoved on by top 2 pair, snap call, and lose a $750 pot when another queen hits the river. It was a 3-outer, as one of his outs would have given me a straight flush. That guy who doubled up through me looked at 2 more hands and racked up. Next hand comes when we get 2 limps and I raise king-jack of clubs to 35. A pro in early position makes the call, so at 75 in, we go to a flop of jack-deuce-3 rainbow. He checks, and I check it back for several reasons, none of which I'm going to mention given that this guy's a pro. The turn's a 6, and he checks. I bet 35, and he comes along. With 145 in, the river is a 5, bringing in a 1-liner to a 4, which I definitely didn't like, but he checks, and I feel that a value bet is still in order. I fire in 3 green chips. He clearly realized that my line was pretty weird and didn't make much sense. Decided to call, I show my hand, and I'm good, taking down a $295 pot. Later on, we get a limp and a VIP that raises to 10. I'm not kidding. He made it 10. The button calls, and I'm in the small blind with ace-king offsuit, and I make it 45. The guy who made it 10 calls out of turn. The limper then ships all in for 165. The VIP who had called now folds because action changed. I obviously make this call. Under the gun shows pocket deuces. We run the cards, and if you've watched me play ace-king before, you already know the result. I don't improve, the deuces hold, and he, I'm not kidding, racks up before seeing another hand. Later on, a pro opens to 15. Very tight range there from this particular opponent. A VIP in the hijack calls, and the cutoff calls as well. I have ace-jack of spades on the button. I could squeeze here, but given the tight range of the initial raiser, I don't want to risk it. The big blind calls as well, so with 75 in, we see it 5 ways, and it comes slightly above average for me. 4-6-9, all spades. It gets checked to the cutoff, and he bets 60. Now, I elect not to raise here, given the fact that if he didn't flop a flush, I know this opponent very well, kind of a theme on this vlog, he's just never given me action. And if I allow the others to come along, I have a shot at getting some action from them. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't occur. We do end up going heads up. So with 195 in, the turn is the 5 of spades. Obviously not a card I wanted to see. I know there is no way on earth the cutoff will ever bet this card in a million years. Sure enough, I'm right. He checks to me, and I bet 70, hope that he'll call me with some of his lower flushes. And he does call. So at 335 in, the river is another 4, pairing the board. And the cutoff comes out and bets 300. This is the easiest fold of the nut flush you can ever get. And again, player dependent. I lay it down pretty quickly. He doesn't show, but I'm very confident in my read. And following up from the last time we talked about this, the renovation at the Peppermill Poker Room has been completed. It's now wide open. Though they didn't add any more tables, which actually kind of surprised me given how packed it'll be at Runnin Up Reno, but take a look. All right, so those of you that have been to Runnin Up Reno before already know this man. He's Mike Nelson. He's actually former poker player himself and one of my favorites when he was a player. Now he's the manager of the Peppermill Poker Room. And he's one of the guys who really spearheaded Runnin Up Reno to make it what it is. So my question is, how much bigger can it get? I mean, it seems like every Runnin Up Reno is bigger than the previous one, and now we have the 9th one coming up.
That's a great question. So let me answer you like this. The Peppermill just bought a new chipset for our main event that will allow us to have 2,000 entries in the main event. So that's where we're going. Will we have this event? Probably not, but maybe 1,000 entries. But we're prepared to keep growing. So it's amazing, but it just keeps growing. We keep getting more celebrities, more excited people. It's just fun.
I mean, it seems like it's become one of these things that nobody wants to miss out on. It's like if they miss Runnin Up Reno, they don't want to hear about everyone else how much of a good time they had going to Runnin Up Reno.
It's true, because we're not doing just poker. The poker events are a blast. Our main event has a 300,000 guarantee on it, and it's only 600 bucks. So we have a lot of entries, but we do a karaoke night, we do a werewolf night, we're doing a charity event, we do a survivor event with Boston Rob and Tyson Apostle. So we do a lot of fun stuff for the players while they're here. We want to make this a destination poker vacation for everyone.
And some of the events like the all-in or fold tournament, I mean, these are things that you just don't see anywhere else, right?
Yeah, we have an all-in or fold tournament that is great. We have a win the button. So every time you win a hand, you get the dealer button again. A really popular event. We do an $1,100 buy-in with $500 bounties. It's one of our most popular events. This year we started a tag team mixed event. So we have Hold'em and mixed games involved. We just do a lot of fun, crazy stuff. And you're right, nobody wants to miss the event.
Yeah, and clearly more and more are coming to it. So that's starting up this coming week, and what, about 10 days or so?
Next Friday, cards in the air at noon.
Oh, fantastic. Runnin Up Reno 9 here at the Peppermill. You don't want to miss out.